So this week we're doing lesson 28, and it's called Awareness, the seventh principle. So the seventh principle of network healers is awareness itself. And awareness is, you could say, the most important thing in the universe, even though it's not even a thing. Can't even call it a thing. Right then, so as I was saying, lesson 28, awareness, the seventh principle. So network healers has certain principles, 7 of them, and awareness is the 7th one. And we're going to talk about what awareness is today. In the next lesson, we're going to talk even more in depth about what awareness is and how it's created. But for today, we're going to describe awareness, and we're going to go on a little journey of awareness, of growing self-awareness, and then we're going to do some practical. So we'll do a bit of theory at the beginning. We'll do a few practical exercises about how to realize the awareness within you. They're meditation exercises, various special types of meditation to find the awareness. And then we'll finish off with a little bit of theory again, finish the journey at the end. So let's get going. So there we go. Hopefully you can all see that. Lesson 28, awareness, the 7th principle. So as you can see on the right there, that is the 7 principles of network healers. The Aya healing pyramid, the book of codes, which is programming energy. We're going to have a lesson on the book of codes coming up shortly. Karma emotions, which is emotional memory and reincarnation applied to health. Energy healing. Network of healers, i.e. groups of healers working together as one. Bioenergy anatomy. And that's 6. And the 7th one is in the middle. That awareness symbol in the middle. So at the end of this lesson, we'll explain that symbol and what that symbol means and all the different symbols within it. But awareness is the 7th principle because it is the top of the pyramid. It's the most important thing in the journey of healing, becoming aware of your awareness. That's what self-realization is. That is the goal of the universe. That is the healing journey. That is the culmination of the healing journey, is to realize the awareness. And when you realize the awareness, then it has a knock-on effect all the way through your system, all the way through your life, and you start to heal until you get to the point of self-realization where the source realizes its awareness through you. And on top of that, another reason why it's the 7th principle is that all the energy that is coming through us is, you could say, coming from the source of the universe. That's why it's the 7th principle. And it is a little bit hidden on this daffodil, isn't it? You could be forgiven in thinking there's only 6 principles if it's not explained to you. The 7th principle is in the symbol in the middle, and it's quite hidden. And that is a metaphor for how the source is in real life. It is quite hidden. It's behind the contents of the mind. You have to go and look for it to find it. You've almost got to know it's there because you've got to become aware of it. So what is awareness? That's the question that we're going to be trying to answer in this lesson and the next. Now, I'll come back to this particular question at the end of this lesson. But first of all, we're going to go on a journey of awareness, because it is a journey of growing self-awareness. And the journey we're talking about really is the journey of meditation. Growing our awareness through meditation until we become self-aware. And these are the steps of the journey of meditation. And we'll go through these in this lesson, through this little journey of meditation. Now, we are starting at the human level here. We're starting at the human journey. Now, there is the whole journey of growing self-awareness through the animal species, of course. And the whole journey of life is involved with growing self-awareness. That's what the universe does. It creates life, and then life goes on that journey of growing intelligence, growing complexity, growing self-awareness, until it culminates on this planet. It culminates in the species, the human species, who are capable of becoming self-realized. So here we're starting at the human journey, the journey of meditation. So first of all, there's a growing awareness of behavior when somebody starts a journey of meditation. And by the way, a journey of meditation is not necessarily just in one lifetime. The journey of meditation really lasts for many, many lifetimes. You guys have been meditating in previous incarnations for, I would say, hundreds probably of incarnations already. So the journey of meditation is a long journey through many incarnations. So first of all, when somebody starts a journey of meditation, they have a growing awareness of behavior. Then they start to grow awareness of their surroundings. Their senses change and they become more and more aware of their surroundings. And then that grows to an awareness of the rest of the world and things that are happening further than their immediate surroundings. And then eventually they become aware of their true identity. So that's awareness as an identity. And then that grows into universal awareness. And that's that's getting towards the end of the journey for the source. It's going home for the source. It realizes its own universal awareness. By the way, this is why we're called Aya, awaken your awareness. Because that is the journey of healing, awakening your awareness. So let's first start with the growing awareness of our behavior. This is what, first of all, starts to happen as people go through or start the journey of meditation. So what do we mean by this exactly? Well, let's go back to the analogy of a house. This is from the psychological layer in the pyramid, which we did last year. Let me just remind you about this what's going on in this diagram. Everything in the roof is conscious. Everything in the brickwork is subconscious. This is an analogy for your mind. This is what's going on in your mind, in the psychological layer. So the mind stream and the emotions, the mind stream is the stream of thoughts that goes through our mind constantly all day long. The emotions, obviously, is what we feel. Both of them two go into laying down memories. We experience things in our life, and as a result, we lay down memories. But the mind stream and the emotions influence how those memories are actually laid down. It's a survival tactic. That's why strong emotions always lay down stronger memories, because then you remember them more. Now, out of this stack of memories come personality characteristics. And then out of those personality characteristics come values. Values are just characteristics that have been prioritized, or concepts that have been prioritized from our memories. And then the mask identity, that's the ego, that's the little self, that's the illusory self. That's all within the subconscious, really. That governs the rest of the personality, that egoic identity, the mask. But it's the mask which generates the mind stream. It's the mask which is producing all of those thoughts that we're subjected to all day long, which then trigger emotions. And then it's the thoughts and emotions which influence how the memories are laid down. So we go around in a circle. And of course, this can spiral into negativity. And as we know, afflictions of the mind start happening in the stack of memories and produce personality characteristics that we really would rather not have, that cause us anxiety or rage, hatred and anger, things like that. And then that all governs our behavior, which is coming out the chimney there. All that psychological layer governs people's behavior. So that's the psychological layer, just as a reminder. So what happens when you go through the journey of meditation, or that when you start the journey of meditation? Well, very gradually, this is what happens. Sorry, before I do that, actually. This is where the decision making is, I should have said. The decision making is in the mask at this point. So the decision making that governs behavior is actually done by the mask identity. But in this diagram, it's in the subconscious, isn't it? Subconscious behavior, let's say. But this is what happens as you go through the journey of meditation. Very gradually, mask and the values start to move into the conscious bit, into the roof, through growing awareness. So meditation brings awareness to the processes going on in the mind. It brings awareness to the mind stream. And very gradually, people become aware of their decision-making process, become aware of their ego, of the false self, the false identity that is governing everything else. And then from then on, they can start to choose their values. And we can accelerate this through self-healing, of course. We've done the psychological layer, we've done the AA healing pyramid. You can choose your values. If you have awareness of what's going on, you can choose your values and angle your mind, your personality towards those values, healthy values. So that's something that happens along the journey of meditation, a growing awareness of our behavior. Okay, so the next one was growing awareness of our surroundings. Now, what do we mean by this? Because, of course, everybody's aware of their surroundings, right? Well, there's a whole new level of awareness of your surroundings that start when you go on a journey of meditation. And just to remind you guys, if any of you are thinking about yourselves in this situation, don't forget that your journey of meditation started thousands of years ago, thousands of years ago. You've been doing this for many incarnations. And as you guys are at the point of self-realization, then it's the last incarnation. So it doesn't really matter what you've done in this life, particularly in terms of meditation. If you've never meditated in this particular incarnation, that's irrelevant to this. This has been done, the work has been done beforehand. So, a growing awareness of our surroundings. Senses start to get heightened. And you start to notice things around you. Notice them like you've never noticed them before. You know, in some, I think it's Buddhism, in some spiritual traditions, I think it's Buddhism, I think they have a phrase saying something like, look at things as if you're a child. And what that means is that you look around in your surroundings and notice things as if you're seeing them for the first time, basically. That's what that means. And this is part of the journey of meditation. You look around you and you notice things. You really notice things. For example, this is just looking out of a window at a sunrise on a rainy day. If you really look, you see the wonder of creation. You see the beauty of the things that are around you. Now, everyone appreciates a good landscape. But you can actually meditate on these landscapes. We call it macro meditation. You get lost in the natural world around you, especially in big landscapes. And you can actually meditate on these landscapes. Or you look closer at the micro world and you meditate on the very small things. There's an amazing structure everywhere around you. You don't even have to be outside. Just look very closely at the structure of things and you'll be amazed at the complexity and the beauty. Even just in the mundane things as well. This is just a leafy path with dead leaves on it, for example. If you look really closely, you'll find that the detail is incredible. The closer you look, the more detail becomes available, basically. And you can meditate on this, micro meditation. And as you go on this journey of meditation, the more you look, the more you find. It's like seeing things for the very first time. Another example, leaves are very good to meditate on. You know, leaves at a distance just look green, but look closer, and I'm sure you've all done this, of course. But look closer. There's a whole network of things going on inside that leaf. It's an endless world to look at, to meditate on. Look even closer, and you see this. And you could, if your eyes were able to, look even closer and closer and closer and see even more detail about what's going on. Next time you're walking at a beach and you see a pebble, there's all sorts of detail that you can actually look at with wonder and amazement. Just the air bubbles in water is amazing when you really look closely. Or maybe ponds and puddles and things like that. When you look really closely, especially on a sunny day, when you look really closely at a puddle and all the ripples that's going on in that puddle and all the light reflections that you can see in that puddle, is absolutely amazing if you really think about it. This is the kind of detail that you start becoming aware of naturally through the journey of meditation. The complexity in nature, which is all around us, is mind-boggling. And you start to really get lost and absorbed just in the normal things that are around you. And you don't even have to be in nature. You can just be doing normal things at any time. There is beauty in the world all around you. But of course, nature is one of the best ways, because there's so much beauty in nature. And you, on top of that, you get an added benefit of the energy that's coming off nature. When you spend a lot of time in nature, especially in forests, especially when there's big trees around, there's a certain energy which is conducive to this meditative state. So as you go through the journey of meditation, your awareness starts to expand and you become aware and sensitive. You become aware of your surroundings, like in a new light. Any questions or comments so far before I carry on? Okay, the next one was growing awareness of the problems in the world. Now, this is very topical at the moment, of course. But as you go through the journey of meditation, this happens naturally. Your awareness starts to grow further than your immediate surroundings. And you do tend to start noticing problems in the world, but slightly differently to before, because you start to notice them with less and less fear or anxiety. Now, that's a very gradual process over a long period of time. But that is what happens the more you meditate, the more fear starts to disappear. And you notice problems, but you're not as worried about them as you might have been before, perhaps, if you're even aware. There's lots of people who are not aware of the things going on. So fear starts dropping away very gradually as you go through the journey of meditation. And very gradually, you start to grow a sense of acceptance and even hope. And as I said, this is very topical at the moment because things look like they are crashing. And you could say they are. There's a lot of period of turmoil to go through. But the more meditation somebody does, the more they grow acceptance and a hope that actually it's not all that bad and that it's going to come good. It's going to get better. So a hope of a brighter and positive future that's on its way. And that comes through our intuition, and that's talking about the global awakening. Okay, the next one is the journey of meditation. The next one in the journey of meditation is awareness as an identity. Now, this is a big step in the journey of meditation. Now, you might think that awareness as identity is self-realization, and that's very true. But this actually starts way, way, way back in the journey of healing or the journey of meditation in previous incarnations. So you guys would have had an awareness as identity in many previous lifetimes. And it takes a lot of practice. It takes a lot of spiritual practice over many incarnations, really, to get the hang of it. So you guys might have had incarnations as Buddhist monks or Hindu monks or Christian monks. It doesn't matter what religion, but you would have had lots of incarnations where your whole purpose was to do spiritual practice. So what is awareness as identity? Well, this is back to the spiritual layer of the pyramid, isn't it? Who or what are you? And one of the practical exercises that we're going to do in a minute is centered around this. Who or what are you? Are you the mask identity? Are you this fake personality that we have, that we wear to interact socially to people? This mask which is ever changing, constantly changing, up and down through the course of your life, changes with changing memories. Is that who you are? Or are you something deeper? Are you something more fundamental? Are you something more permanent? So in the spiritual layer, we teach that you are the light of awareness behind the mask. You're the peaceful awareness that lies just behind the mask. And it's made of inner peace. When we go and look for it, or when we try and realize it, we start feeling inner peace. And we start to realize that it's actually made of inner peace, or inner peace and awareness within us is actually the same thing. And we realize that it is permanent. So we have a mask identity which changes all the time. And we have something within us which is permanent and peaceful. Which would you rather make your identity? Something which changes all the time? What about your clothes? You change your clothes all the time, don't you? That changes daily. But we don't go around saying that our clothes are us. Our clothes are our identity, do we? They are our clothes. It's not who we are. The mask identity is the same thing. The personality, the mind, is the same thing. It changes all the time. It's like a set of clothes. It is our personality. It is not who we are, because it's not permanent. But our consciousness never changes throughout the course of our lives. It is just there. It is aware. It looks out of our eyes. That's what it does. And that is the subject of meditation. So we're going to do a meditation in a minute, and we're going to talk about the subject and the object. Now, we talked about this in the spiritual layer of the pyramid, didn't we? How when you do meditation, you are creating a split, a natural split between the subject and the object. The subject is you doing the meditating. The object is what you're focused on in the mind, whatever that is. Whatever you focus your mind on and train your mind on, that's the object. So the object is in your mind, and the subject is looking at the object. But that is the true self. Now, through the journey of meditation, very gradually we find unshakable inner peace. And inner peace we can define as the background state of being when we quieten down the mind stream, emotions and senses. But we realize that this inner peace is the same as our awareness. And as we go on the journey of meditation, we very gradually find an unshakable inner peace. And the reason why it becomes unshakable is that it is our identity which is migrating from the false self to the true self. The true self is awareness itself. So that's why we find awareness as identity at some point in the journey of meditation. And self-realization naturally happens. Once we're on the journey of meditation, we are inevitably leading ourselves towards self-realization. And self-realization really is the culmination of that journey. It's when that identity becomes permanent and the false self is left behind completely. And that is true spirituality. That's the definition, really, of spirituality. A lot of people equate religions with spirituality, but really, at its core, that's what spirituality is. Religions are just traditions which gets laid upon spirituality, century after century, and then gets twisted up and morphed into all sorts of other things. But ultimately, spirituality is self-realization, the realization of our true self, the universal realization of our true self, the universe realizing its true self as pure awareness through conscious beings in the universe. So how do we do it, is the next question. How do we become aware of awareness as identity? So first of all, just a quick reminder again about the subject and the object. When you are meditating, well, in fact, to be honest, this applies to everything, actually. It applies to all moments. The subject-object split is always there. However, when you meditate, you become aware of it. So there is a subject, which is you. And that's consciousness, that's awareness. And you are focusing on something, whether you're focusing on the inner sensations of the body, the breathing, whatever it is, a visualization in the mind, or whatever, or something you can hear, or you can even focus on your thoughts, like a mantra meditation. It doesn't really matter what the object is, it's what you're focused on in the mind. And the idea here is, with meditation, is first of all to separate your awareness from your mind stream. That's what you're doing here, is becoming aware that there is a separation between awareness and what's going on in the mind, what you're focusing the mind on, basically. That's why subject and object is the most important thing for people to know when they start the journey of meditation. It's very simple, isn't it? Subject-object split. But it's almost like the most important thing to learn about meditation. Because finding the subject, or realizing the subject, is the whole goal of meditation. So the next step to realize awareness as identity is becoming aware of awareness, if you like. It's kind of a strange one, isn't it? It's awareness becoming aware of awareness, if you can see what I mean. And we call that is subject becomes object. And that's going to be the title of a exercise we're going to do in a minute. So basically what that means is the object, or let's say that the subject becomes the object of your meditation, which means that you try and focus on the subject, which means you're trying to find the subject. So your subject, i.e. you, becomes the object of meditation. Now what actually happens there is that you can't do that. It doesn't work because you can't focus on it. You cannot focus on awareness. No matter how hard you look, how hard you try, you can't focus on it because it's not an object. It has no form. That realization dawns on us as we go through the journey of meditation. Awareness has no form. It is non-physical. So it's outside of the physical universe of form. It's not made of anything. It's nothing, basically, you could say. It's a conscious presence of nothing. That's what you find. Now, when you perform this exercise, subject becomes object, what happens is that you actually end up in a state of objectless meditation. And objectless meditation is the most advanced form of meditation that there is, because you've trained your mind through however long journey of focusing the mind on one object of meditation. So your mind does what it's told, basically. So it can focus on one thing and shut out everything else. And then you go into objectless meditation, which is just meditating without an object. Because when you try and focus on the subject, the object disappears and there's nothing left. Well, there's just you left, which is not a thing. So that's objectless meditation. So we're going to try and do that in a second. So any questions about that before we try the practical exercises? Okay, well, let's do a little bit of practical then. So we're going to do this practical, then we're going to come back to the journey that we were going on, because we haven't finished the journey of awareness. There's more to come. There's once you become aware of awareness as identity, then it grows into universal awareness. So we'll come back to that in a minute. But first of all, let's do this practical. So this is the real goal of meditation, really. So we are at the moment going straight to the most advanced form of meditation, which is called objectless meditation. And we're assuming that you've done thousands or hundreds of incarnations of meditation already, which I know that you guys have, even though you might not remember. So the first exercise is called subject becomes object. So before we try this out, let's just remind ourselves of meditation itself, just in case if you haven't meditated for a while, let me just remind you about what meditation is, and let's just do a couple of exercises to warm up, let's say. So first of all, meditation, as I've said, subject and object split. You're focusing your mind on one thing. You're training your mind to focus on one thing. You're training your mind to focus so hard, to concentrate so hard on one thing that everything else starts to shut down. Very slowly, the mind stream will calm down. Very slowly, the emotions will calm down. Even your sensory stuff starts to calm down. In yoga philosophy, this is called sense withdrawal. The more you meditate, the more everything in the background starts to calm down and dissipate. That's when you can feel the background piece of your own awareness. So if everybody tries this just to start with, if you squeeze your finger and thumb together and focus on that sensation in between your finger and thumb, that pressure that you can feel in between your finger and thumb. And we'll just do that we'll do it for 5 seconds to start with. So focus all of your attention on that sensation. Don't let your mind wander anywhere. Okay, go. Okay, you stop there. So that was just 5 seconds. That was meditation. You don't have to meditate for very long for it to be meditation. Now, I'm guessing that people didn't really have a thought that went through their mind through that particular time, because it wasn't long enough. 5 seconds, usually, you can concentrate your mind and no thoughts will come through. Now let's do it for 15 seconds and let's see what happens. Notice if your mind gets distracted anywhere else but that sensation in between your finger and thumb. Okay, I'll let you know when to stop. Go. Okay, stop. Okay, how's that? Did anyone get any thoughts start coming through their mind, or was everybody still completely focused during that time? Yeah? Yeah, okay. I mean, that is, you can describe it that way. Yeah, I know what you mean. There's a sea of thoughts waiting to jump in on you, and you're just keeping them at bay. Yeah, sure. Anyone else? Okay, let's do it for a little bit longer. We'll do it for 30 seconds and let's see what happens there. Okay, go for it. I'll let you know when to stop. That'll do. How about now? Some thoughts managed to creep in? Or not? Yeah, banging on the door. Okay, didn't get in. So, being able to hold your concentration for 30 seconds is actually very good, to be honest with you. Because when people first start the journey of meditation, they can't, they often can't do it for 10 seconds. So 30 seconds is actually a very good time already. Yes, we call that task-orientated meditation. And there's 2 forms of it that we think that are possible. One is the completely immersive aspect, a meditative state while performing a task, but not really aware, not doing it consciously. So the mind is doing it on its own, and the mind is performing the task on its own, but you are in a meditative state. And then the other form is that you're performing a task, but you are controlling what you're focusing on. So if you're doing a bit of artwork, for example, with a paintbrush, and basically in task-oriented meditation, in this way, you focus on the senses in your fingers as you touch the brush, and you make your mind focus on that for, say, 10 seconds. And then you focus on the canvas, and you focus intently on what you are painting, and you do that for 10 seconds. So it's the same process, but you are changing the object of meditation consciously and forcing the mind to do what you want it to do, basically. Yes, in flow, in the zone, it's just happening. Yeah, and the other one is, you're taking control of it. Yeah, absolutely. And you can do that on any task. As long as your mind is focused on the job. So if the mind is off in the mind stream, then it's not that anymore. So for example, if you're driving, because a lot of people do this while they're driving, you can drive and be concentrating in flow, and everything's just happening naturally, your mind's just doing it. Or you can be driving and the mind is off doing all sorts of thinking. So that's very different. So if you're thinking, then you're not meditating at all. Right, so let's go back to subject becomes object now. So now I've just reminded you what I mean about an object of meditation. In the journey of meditation, you focus and you train your mind for a long period of time until it does what you want it to do. Now let's go subject becomes object, because here, first of all, we need to imagine that there is an object in front of you, and you can just pretend that there is a little point in front of you that you're focusing on. Imagine that there is a little sphere, a little ball or something like that. If you want to imagine an energy ball or something like that, that's perfectly all right. Just something for you to focus on that's imaginary, that's out in front of you, about a meter out in front of you. Now, the next thing you want to do is, so you're focusing on this little dot or this little ball of energy, and you want to start bringing it towards you very slowly. Now, don't forget the idea of the exercise. You're trying to bring that object and place it on you, because you want to try and find you. What is it in there which is you? So you want to bring an object closer and closer and closer through your eyes, and then place it on top of you in the hope that you're going to find you, the subject. Now, you can do this with your eyes closed or open, really. It doesn't really matter. If you've got your eyes closed still, you just imagine an object, a pinpoint of object out in front of you, wherever it is, and you just you try and bring it back on yourself, and you look for the subject and see what happens. Now we'll do this for about 5 or 6 minutes, and then I'll stop you and we'll have a little chat about it, and then we'll do it again. See if we can get some comments from you guys, and then we'll do it again. Okay, so any questions before we give that a go? That makes sense to everyone? Is that okay? All right then, give that a go. I'll let you know when to stop. 5 or 6 minutes or so, okay? Let's come back now. Will be enough. So what happened when people tried that? What happens when the object gets placed on top of the subject? Anybody? And if nothing happened, that's absolutely fine. Okay, interesting. Yeah, no, I mean, it's only bizarre because your high mind gave you a vision of it, basically. So yeah, I mean, it's like a descriptive vision of what you're trying to do, really, isn't it? Excellent. But that's high minds for you, isn't it? Anyone else? Yeah, no, that is a very good point to bring up, that a lot of people, when they meditate, they see visions, and visions can be very useful, but actually it does distract you from the real goal of meditation, doesn't it? Because a vision is another object in the mind. It's something you are seeing instead of trying to find the subject. So that's probably why your higher mind threw that in there, so that we'd discuss it. Anybody else? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's perfectly natural. That's the mind coming in with thoughts to distract you. So yeah, absolutely. Right. Okay. Yeah, excellent. Well, okay, this time, so all these are great visions, and they mean things, and they're messages from your higher mind, and sometimes they're just distracting. Sometimes you get a vision, sometimes it's a distracting thought. But this time, let's do that again. And if, as you're all visualizing a ball of energy, as it comes closer to you, as you place it on top of you, see that ball of energy come down in size and reduce and reduce and reduce and reduce until it completely vanishes. And don't forget, all your focus is on that ball of energy. And if you get distracted with thoughts or a vision, say no. Say, no, I don't want that vision right now. I'm trying to do this. See if that works. Or if it's just distracting thoughts, keep bringing your mind back to that ball of energy. But bring it on top of yourself and then reduce it down in size until it's completely disappeared. When that object completely disappears, just hold that. Just hold that moment. You are then in objectless meditation, and just notice you. The only thing left is you in there. It's so simple when you find it. It's not a complicated thing. It's just pure awareness. There's a conscious presence in there, which is you, and all you have to do is become aware of it. So when that object disappears, when that ball disappears, there's just nothing left. It's just you. Try and hold that state of being for as long as you can. Okay, try that again. I'll let you know when to stop. Oh no, we need a break. Do we need a break? Yeah, let's just have a little break because it's 7 minutes past already. So yeah, come back to that. See you in a couple of minutes. Right, yeah, okay. So again, that's a lovely vision of how awareness flowers, doesn't it? It gradually flowers in you. But in this exercise, in the next one, try and reject any visions that are given to you, because I think our high minds are just doing it on purpose to try and make people stop looking at the vision and actually focus on the true self. So try that next time. Well, yeah, in a way, just say no, because that's taking my focus away from the true self, and try and take it back to finding that awareness. Okay, how are we getting on? Are we almost there? So what we were about to do was the subject-object meditation again, and this time bring that energy ball, or whatever you're using, by the way. It doesn't matter what the object is at all, but bring it back towards you, place it on you, and then shrink it until it disappears completely. And if you get distracted with a vision, say no to the vision. Say, I don't want to see that. I'm going to focus on the object and make it disappear. And if you get distracted as well, same thing. Bring your focus back to the object and then allow it to disappear once it's on top of you, and see what is left after. Try and hold that state of being without an object. Okay, everyone ready to go? Okay, I will let you know when to stop. Go for it. Okay, that'll do. Let's start coming back. Right, okay, so that's the bit. Right, so that's the bit I'm interested in, where you just said, I just went back to my head and stayed there. And it felt really nice. So in that moment when you were just there in your head, that's what we're looking for, really. It was just you. It was just you in your head, wasn't it? Yeah, and that's when, so that inner peace really starts to pour out when there's no object of meditation. So anytime you can, sit in that state. Now, you don't have to always do the object thing. You know, eventually when you get used to it, it's always there, of course. All you have to do is stop focusing on anything and sit in your head. As you know, it's funny teaching this sort of stuff, because everybody comes up with a different name for it. You know, you can call it whatever you want, because you can't really, there's no real name that you can put on it. So everybody sort of describes it in different ways, you know. Sometimes it's called resting in your own awareness. And that's kind of what you've just described there, isn't it? I think, sitting in your head. That's excellent. So keep focusing on that, or keep trying to be in that state of being. Anybody else? Yeah, okay. Well, that's another description. Excellent. Yeah, it's an empty space, because that's absolutely true. It is empty of form, completely. Some people call it a space of nothing. Yeah. And it feels familiar. I guess that's another way of saying, well, that's you. And yeah, don't forget the object bit, you know, the beginning bit of the exercise is only really to get you into that place. So if you go straight there, then you go straight there, of course. You don't need to do the beginning. Anybody else? So blank. So in that moment of blankness, what was left? Okay, so that's all right. But then there's a short moment in there where everything went blank. So that's what you got to expand on. Yeah. Before the mind goes wandering. And that's why the journey of meditation is a journey, because it takes a long time to train the mind to do what you want it to do. Yeah, okay, that's okay. But what you want to do is just keep doing that, bring that ball back, and bring it through your eyes and on top of yourself as well, by the way. And then shrink it down until it disappears. And then that little space there, that's what you want to stay in. But yes, if your mind then gets distracted and starts thinking, bring the object back. Just bring the object back slightly, a tiny object, so that you're focused on it again, and then do it again, and bring it back down again to nothing. Just keep doing that, and so that you keep getting little bursts of that space, basically. And then eventually that space will grow and grow and grow, and you'll get better and better at it. And then that will become your identity eventually. Great. Anybody else? Okay, well, we can carry on unless there's anybody else. Anybody else wanted to say something? Okay, let's move to the next exercise, because there are a couple of different ways of doing this, and depends what you prefer, really. The next one is called What Am I exercise. Now, this exercise was first written down in the Yoga Sutras a couple hundred years before Christ by a chap called Patanjali. And Patanjali is quite often known as the father of yoga, because yoga really stems from the Yoga Sutras. And he became self-realized and started writing down a whole load of stuff, which then became yoga, really. And he talked about the What Am I exercise, although he didn't exactly call it that, but he described the What Am I exercise. And then it became very famous in the 20th century by a chap called Ramana Maharishi. And Ramana Maharishi became self-realized in the 20th century, and he's no longer around now, but he is one of our human avatars. And he has visited various people, and he's part of this whole journey. Anyway, that was a bit of trivia. But what am I exercise? What is it? Okay. So basically here we've got to use a process called discernment. Now this discernment word was what Patanjali used. Discernment is deciphering and deciding between things, basically. And you've got to go through your whole conscious experience, and you've got to find what you are. What in your conscious experience can you define as you? So this is a part meditation, part sort of psychological exercise. You've got to be active, you've got to think, you've got to stare, you've got to meditate. There's a bit of everything in it. So basically what we do is, based on the idea of the subject and object, being that the subject does the focusing, and the thing that's focused on is the object. That means that the subject cannot be the object, because it is the subject that's doing the focusing. So we've got to go through all our conscious experiences and label them either an object or the subject. So anything that you can focus on in your mind, in your whole sphere of experience, anything that you can focus on is an object of meditation. Therefore, it's not you, because of the subject-object split. So we'll do this. I'll just describe it quickly, and then we'll go through it and actually do it. So you've got to start naming objects in your sphere of experience. What are the things that we're aware of consciously? What can we see in our experience? Well, you can see things. That's the first thing that is immediately obvious. We see things. And you can focus on what you see, can't you? So I can see this coaster. I can focus on it, therefore it is an object of meditation. It is an object in the mind. Therefore it's not the subject. So what I can see is not me. And then you ask the question, what am I? If I'm not what I can see, what am I? You've got to keep repeating this question in your mind. What am I? What am I? What am I? Because you are kind of almost asking your higher mind to reveal it to you. And at some point, it will be revealed to you. So the next thing, what else have we got in our sphere of experience? Well, I can hear things. I can experience them. And can you focus on what you can hear? Of course you can. Auditory meditation. You can meditate on sounds. Therefore, that's an object of meditation. Therefore, it is not you. It is an object in the mind. Next, what else are we aware of in our sphere of experience? Well, what about inner body sensations that we call kinesthetic sensations in the body? You're aware of them, feelings in the body. Can you focus on them? Of course you can. That's what meditation is all about, isn't it? Focusing on the breath, focusing on inner body sensations. So, if you can focus on it, it's an object of meditation, therefore it's not the subject, it's not you. And then repeat the question every time, what am I? What am I? What am I? And then you go through all your senses, everything that you're consciously experiencing. You can go through all of them in turn. And if you can focus on it, it's not you. And then repeat the question, what am I? What about thoughts? You experience thoughts. Well, you can focus on thoughts, can't you? because mantra meditation is focusing on thoughts. And a vision is a thought. A vision is something that you see. You can focus on it. Therefore, it is an object of meditation. Therefore, it's not you. That completely takes out the whole of mind, doesn't it? Thought patterns, that's not you. Keep repeating the phrase, what am I? What am I? And then eventually you'll run out of things. You'll run out of things to focus on, and then you'll be looking for what is left. What's left in your sphere of experience that you can't focus on? And you keep repeating the question, what am I? What am I? Until you realize that you are actually the background state of awareness in which everything is happening. So let's give that a little go. And you can do it with your eyes closed or open. It doesn't really matter. But you've got to go through that process of what am I? A sense. Notice what you're looking at. Call it an object. Call it not you. Say those words in your mind. And repeat the question, what am I then? What am I? And then go through a few of your conscious experiences like we've just done. Keep repeating that phrase, what am I? Until you're just almost staring into space, looking for anything else that you're consciously aware of. And that's where you might realize what you actually are. Okay, any questions about that? Okay, give that a go. I'll let you know when to stop. I think that'll do. Let's start coming back. Okay, any comments about that? Well, let's just pick that apart a little bit. When you say going to sleep, do you think you're actually talking about going to sleep, or did you go into an absorptive meditative state? Yeah, so that's what, when you go into a deep absorptive state in meditation, that's kind of what it feels like. You are awake, but it almost feels like the mind is asleep. Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's great. So your high mind put you in that state. Now, can you remember what it was like while you were in that state? Yeah, no, fair enough. And it's difficult to explain because there's no real words to describe awareness and the inner peace of awareness. But we do have to try, because then you can explain it to other people then. So yeah, that sounds like your higher mind basically showed you. You asked the question, what am I? And it showed you. Literally, immediately. Yeah. Excellent. Anybody else? Okay, that's okay. So what you want to do is carry on whenever you've got a minute, whenever you're just sitting down and doing nothing, just do that. Just keep doing that exercise. Or whether you like the first one, subject becomes object, or whether you like the what am I exercise, doesn't really matter. But the what am I exercise is good for just sitting around, staring at things and trying to just look inside and go and ask yourself these questions until your true self actually appears. But you have to, it is a repetitive thing. You've got to keep doing it until it happens. Yeah, that makes 100% sense. Absolutely. You know if it's not a dream because you're not getting any images, basically. So it's got that sleepy quality to it, but you haven't got any dream images, and you haven't got thoughts that are bothering you, and you might feel a bit of crinkly thoughts on the edges, a bit like what we were talking about earlier with Sally there. You might feel that there's thoughts in the background, but you've got this space, this bubble that you're in, and it's a sort of fuzzy, peaceful space, isn't it? Yeah, excellent. So you guys are being shown the true self. Now, one particular trick is to, while you're in that state, become aware that is you. Because quite often you get into that absorptive state, and you just, and then time goes by. It's like, there's no time. And then you come out of it and you go, well, that was lovely. And then you carry on. But the trick is to actually, while you're in that state, recognize that that's actually you, that conscious presence of nothing, or that conscious presence of awareness, or space of nothing. Okay, well, let's just carry on with the journey now, because we're not quite finished in the journey of meditation and the question of what is awareness. So let's carry on with the journey of meditation. So that realization that we were just talking about, the realization that awareness itself is you, that's the permanent thing inside you, which has been there all the way along, and it's not connected to your false self, the clothes that you put on in the mask, you could say. That's the first realization of self-realization. And that is, and then, well, first you realize that that's you, and then you realize that it's permanent. Because it's always there, it's unchanging. As I was mentioning before, your mask identity changes constantly. That's impermanent. So in this context, we're calling that unreal, or a type of illusion. You change it, change your personality like you change your clothes. And you know, that even fits over many lifetimes, of course, because you have had many personalities over countless incarnations. So of course, the personality is not who you are. There's one thing that has been unchanging in this life and throughout your countless personalities. And that's awareness. And as you realize that that true self, that awareness is you, you start to realize that it is permanent. And that leads you to realizing that it's infinite because it never ends. And this is just a realization that comes to you. And that awareness, that true self that you've just found there, or that we've just been looking for, that starts to grow and it becomes your true identity. And it starts to grow even outside of you, doesn't it? It starts to not be confined by the boundaries of your body. And you feel that consciously. So that leads you to understand that it's more than just you. And it never ends. It's infinite awareness. And then that leads you to realize that it's just one awareness. If your awareness is everywhere and infinite, then there can only be one. You can't have two separate infinite things, can you? If one is infinite, then there is nothing that it doesn't include. It is all of awareness, which means there's only one, which means it's the same in everybody else. Your awareness is exactly the same as my awareness and everybody else's awareness on this planet. And anything that is consciously aware in the whole universe is just one awareness. And that's universal awareness. So that's the last point. That's the journey home of the source, realizing that universal awareness within you. And that's the same thing as saying that the source is realizing itself, its universal awareness through you. Yeah, there's grains of truth that underlie all the religions. Absolutely, totally agree. And they are sprinkled. As religions evolve into and morph into all sorts of different things, those sprinkles of grains of truth can still be seen. Absolutely. And we're going to talk even more about that next lesson, actually, because we're going to talk about the universal trinity, which is how the source creates the universe. And that is definitely sprinkled over many different. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So the last question to answer is, what is awareness? Which we started the lesson with, the beginning and the end, you could say. Now, you can't really answer this, can you? Because awareness is non-physical, it's infinite. You can't really contemplate it with the mind. You have to experience it to know what it is. But when you experience something, that's not using thoughts. So it's very difficult to put into language, isn't it? And that's perfectly normal. We should accept that. And that's why there's so many different descriptions of it, because languages vary, cultures vary. However, we've given it a bash. We've given it a go, and we've come up with this symbol. So I'm going to explain what's inside this symbol now. So awareness is timeless, dimensionless, infinite, conscious peace. That's what awareness is in the best words that we can find for it. So let's look at this symbol. The symbol is constructed from various other symbols. So the first one is timeless. So that's zero time. That's a circle with a T. That means zero time. And that means it's completely outside of time. Time is a feature of the physical universe of form. Time is a feature of energy. Time is energy, or the measurement of change within energy, because energy is so dynamic. The whole universe is just in constant motion, constantly dynamic, and time is just the measurement of change of that energy field. And our mind constructs the flow of time out of all these different measurements of change. So really the flow of time that we experience in our minds is a bit of an illusion. It's how our mind puts it all together. The source is always now. Awareness is always now. It is outside of this concept of time. Okay, so the next one is dimensionless. And that's this symbol here, which is a zero dimensions, and then you've got the X, Y, and Z axis. And that symbolizes spatial dimensions, which is the same thing as saying length, breadth, width, or height. Basically, there's 3 spatial dimensions. And awareness is outside of that, because spatial dimensions are created by the physical universe of form. Energy. Spatial dimensions, space, empty space itself is a type of energy. Vacuum energy is called, or 0-point energy. That's what creates these spatial dimensions. The next one is infinite. Awareness is infinite. That's that symbol there in the middle. And that is a recognized symbol for infinity, of course. The endless loop going in that figure of 8. Because there is no existence other than awareness. It is all that is. Next one is consciousness. So that is also a recognized symbol for consciousness. The circle with the dot. So it's obvious to say, but awareness is conscious, isn't it? It is consciousness. So obviously that's going to be part of the description. That's a feature that you realize. That's the part of you that guides you to the true self. It's your awareness. And the next one is peace. This is a recognized symbol for peace already. It's called the banner of peace, the Trinity of dots. And that's been used in various circumstances in the past, and now we're using it for this purpose. So when you realize your awareness, at the same time you realize that it's made of peace as well. That's one of its features. And you've described that today in your exercise, that feeling that you get, that peaceful feeling that comes from your own awareness. So that's that symbol, timeless, dimensionless, infinite, conscious peace. That is awareness. But don't forget that awareness is you. We are also describing ourselves. We're describing the source of the universe. We're describing our own consciousness, our true self. And realizing all this is the true meaning of the word awakening. And awakening has been used in various different forms. In this context, that's what awakening truly means. Okay, there we go. That'll do. Any questions about any of it, or comments about any of it? Yeah, I also find that fascinating as well. Absolutely. And it's like, it all comes from the same thing originally. It can be twisted up over thousands of years into all sorts of different traditions, but ultimately it's all spawned from the same concept, really. And I firmly believe that all religions will come together in the end anyway. Through the global awakening at some point, all religions will focus back in on the actual important part, the spiritual part, because it is just one. Yeah. There's a lot of things in the Bible which point towards non-duality, but have been misinterpreted and turned into a dualistic religion, which is what Christianity has turned into now, is it? There's a separation between the person and God, whereas non-dualism is that there is no separation. It is the one and the same thing. But there are lots of things in the Bible that you could definitely interpret. Certainly, a lot of the things Jesus was saying can be very much interpreted in a non-dualistic way. But it's been misinterpreted over hundreds of years. Awesome. Okay. Brilliant. Well, the assignment for this lesson is just to do more of that meditation whenever you can. And eventually that will grow and grow and grow. That's an ongoing thing now, really, as part of this process. But eventually you won't have to do it anymore when it just becomes you, and you're there all the time. Of course, there's no need to do that anymore. It's just a noticing that really is the exercise, the realizing bit that's important.